Hey everybody, welcome back to the Divergent Comics YouTube channel. Today I have Lloyd and Natosha of Midnight Comics. I believe I've been following Natosha on Threads for like the last year, and I've been kind of loosely following Midnight Comics in general over that time span as well, and really enjoyed just the interactions I've found on social media. So I decided, let me check out the stories and I think last year you all were interviewed by Malcolm.
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, so 615 Comics. So that was pretty cool, and I had to follow up. So Natosha, Lloyd, introduce yourselves to everyone and let them know what you all do.
For sure. So, as I stated, I'm Lloyd.
Yeah, I'm Natosha.
We're Midnight Comics. We're
the
Atlanta's first.
and largest Black family-owned indie comic book and manga publisher.
Yep.
It sounds so rehearsed. Y'all do this a lot, huh?
God, but not necessarily. The lives are the rehearsal.
Right.
Gotcha.
It just happens.
Right. But yeah, we've been doing this for in August will be 5 years now.
Nice.
So, but yeah, bunch of titles, nine different titles, 9 published titles. Safely.
10.
10? Okay. 9, 10 published titles.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, with plenty more to come. But yeah. So, yeah.
Sweet. So off the cuff question, I just thought about this because you mentioned that you were in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Did you all go to Augusta Comic Con last year?
Unfortunately, not. No.
Okay, never mind. I read into a publisher at Augusta Comic Con last year, and I thought it may have been you all, but I think I may have gotten you confused with another family.
No, we was at MomoCon last year for sure, though.
Yeah.
Oh, nice, sweet.
Mm-hmm. We was everywhere else but Atlanta last year.
So, Midnight Comics. Tell the people where that name came from and a little bit more about how you got started.
Okay. Oh, okay. Oh, me? Okay, so, several things, right? One of which, right, we wanted to tell those darker, kind of grittier stories and stuff like that. Now, of course, you do see plenty of superhero stories, but that wasn't the original roster. So, we wanted to tell those darker, grittier stories, and so one of the inspirations was our real-life doomsday clock, right? We're X amount of minutes from midnight before all things kind of, nuclear war and Holocaust and all that other stuff, destruction. But even through that, right, in that kind of midnight hour, in that dark time, there are still those that are willing to stand up and try to rebuild, fix things, make things better. That's what a lot of our kind of stories were, like these post-apocalyptic stories where hope is just, bare minimum, if any hope there. But that's why, like, even the logo, although it's this blood moon and it's ominous, the fact that there is still a light shining off the moon still means that there's hope that's there, right?
I do love that logo, by the way.
Yeah,
It's
thank you. The second side of that, of course, is we're a black publisher. Obviously we're both black and stuff like that. And there's a friend of ours in high school that used to call Midnight, right? So it's just taking that aspect of it as well, where it's just like, yeah, we're black, it's dark. Again, going into the kind of themes, right? These darker stories, so on and so forth. So yeah, just highlighting both of those things. So yeah,
I like that. Especially the part about taking something that's typically used as a derogatory term for black people. Because I remember growing up, people would be like, "You as dark as midnight," and it's like that's used derogatorily, but you're using that and flipping it on its head and changing the negative connotation to be more of a positive one, and I love that.
Thank you.
So at the top, you mentioned that you all have like 9 or 10 stories published. Can you kind of run through some of the stories that you have published currently?
Do you want that? You want me to do it? Oh.
Let's see. Of course, are we counting Tales?
We have to count Tales.
Okay, so Tales for Midnight, Soul, The Gray. Technically, the issue 0 for Blue Morpho is out. Imani, Raven's Omen, Last Day, Dogma. Okay, that is 8 actually. Did I say Unbeloved?
No, you did not.
Unbeloved. Okay, so that is 9. My apologies.
That's nice. So I've read the first 2 issues of The Gray.
Okay.
We had a Kickstarter for issue number 3 of The Gray, which was officially fully funded at the beginning of May, if I remember correctly. So definitely congrats on that. Running a Kickstarter is always tough. Your other stories, and I've been loosely following some of the updates and stuff because I believe you have a newsletter that I get every so often, which is really cool as well. With your other stories and everything that's that you've published, have they all gone to Kickstarter, or do you plan on using Kickstarter more with some of your other stories?
So, in the beginning, personally was terrified to use Kickstarter, honestly. So, Unbeloved 0 and 1 went straight to website. Tales from Midnight 1 went straight to website. It wasn't until the Unbeloved Chapter 2, which was the third book in the series, where between, whether it be interviews or conversations with other creators and stuff in the space, it was just like, all right. And of course, we started to, at this point, we had to start to build a fan base or what have you, and it's like, okay, you'll never know unless you try. Rip the Band-Aid off and go for it. And so, from that point on, well, caveat, so Unbeloved 2, Soul 2, Soul 3, Gray 1 officially, and Admani 1 all went to Kickstarter. And then Gray 2, we was like, let's try just straight to website. The fact that Gray 3 is on the Kickstarter lets you know. We'll wait on that.
So to be fair, we didn't do a good job promoting that at all.
That's also true. But yeah, so trying to figure out which route. Obviously right now Kickstarter is the way, but trying to find that good in between. But yeah, Kickstarter has been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic in getting these comics done. Well, the books will be done by the time we hit Kickstarter, but getting the next stories worked on and done, it's, Kickstarter.
Yeah. Kickstarter's kind of got a weird death grip on the comic community. You don't really blow up unless you've had a really big Kickstarter. And that's kind of a good and bad thing in a sense.
Yeah, we were just talking about the fact that we have some customers that only have purchased on Kickstarter. They're not on the mailing list. They don't go to the website. Kickstarter is like, I know Kickstarter. I like Kickstarter. I'll see you on Kickstarter. So,
sure.
Yeah, trying to find that good in between for that. So, yeah.
So, I mentioned The Gray was the one that I have read, that series. I read the first two, and I read the first two because, one, I was going to interview you all, and two, because I saw the Kickstarter for it, issue 3, and I was like, let me check this out. I want to get the first 2 books. And I'm a little impatient sometimes. I don't like to wait if I'm going to get a book. So I went ahead and got the first 2 books, and I enjoyed it. I really liked the artwork. I thought the story was very interesting, and it gave me a lot of, and I don't know if this was intentional, so I'll definitely ask you if this was intentional, but it gave me a lot of Riri Williams vibes. So, funny enough, we're about a month away until Ironheart drops on Disney Plus. Super excited for that.
Oh, yeah.
So, I want you all, because that's the one that I'm most familiar with since I've read it, tell everybody about The Gray, the series, and give us the log line.
Okay, first and foremost, I will say that there has literally no intentional relation to Riri.
Tell him the irony.
Even, ironically enough, even though, I know Ironheart, I have read stuff with Ironheart, I've watched cartoons with Ironheart, I never read that initial Bendis run for Ironheart from Invincible Iron Man.
Until
I read Civil War 2.
Mm-hmm.
I did too, yeah.
And some of the other times, but I never read Invincible Iron Man or the Bendis run. Mm-hmm. I read it last week. And I said,
oh. Oops.
Sometimes that happens.
Get it now. But Shemeika's story is basically, she is an experimental physicist who's been experimenting with black holes. It's her breakthrough technology. But despite her wanting to do good with it, the people she works for would like to weaponize it. Mm-hmm. And so she takes it upon herself. She steals her own tech in order to possibly save the world. There you go.
That is very unique.
And of course, we touch on in the military-industrial complex in that, and just a bunch of other things as well.
So the thing I like about it, about that story, and the way that goes, is because oftentimes when you look through our history, whenever black people have done anything of note, the government immediately co-opts it and uses it for the detriment of the black community. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I love that subtle nod to that in this story. Like immediately as she realizes, oh, instead of using what I want to do, what I've like created to help people, get health care or help people actually live a more sustainable life, they want to use it to take lives. And I thought that was very, very critical to point out, because oftentimes we see that in stories like Iron Man, we see that in stories like even with Batman, where like these big tech agencies will create this incredible tech and then the government wants to co-opt it to try to use it to fight. But seeing it with the black person makes it even more, in my opinion, detrimental, because it's always going to affect our communities 10 times more than any other community. So I love that. What inspired this story?
The lack of representation for black women in STEM.
That is true.
It was this. There's not, of course, as many black women with like degrees, and then there's not as many in the field as, say, white men. And a lot of times I feel like a lot of black women and men obviously don't realize it's an option. Like it's become more prominent now, and it's rising, but they don't see it happening enough to realize it's an option.
Right.
And then when they are in those fields, they're often either overlooked or not listened to, despite, like in Shemeika's case, being the smartest person in the room.
Yeah.
She knows she's the smartest person in the room, which makes it more annoying for her. It frustrates her so much.
Yeah, I imagine. With your stories, and this is just across the board, I know I do this a lot when I'm writing. Do you take characteristics from people in your life and put them in the story, or do you craft stories and then it's like, oh, I know someone that would fit this story?
Sometimes.
Yeah, a little bit of both.
Yeah.
So like Shemeika, very, very excitable, right? Like, oh, I have an idea, and then like hyperfixate, like that's us. Okay, that's me. Okay, that's me.
I hyperfixate, but
You see hyperfixate. So I am
I
very
don't have the same energy.
Yeah, it's like ooh, and then it's just boom, full speed ahead on that, and it's just like oh, squirrel, and then like onto that thing, and boom, boom, boom.
My distraction happens slower.
Yeah, but then like how do we make that different for her is she doesn't think things all the way through, right? Like you went out there immediately into a back alley to test that. Like, what are the consequences? Because she can't fight, right? So
Yeah, I
that's
noticed
like,
that.
oops, right? Oh, you went to go steal your tech,
But
but
now,
only your tech after
else?
you complained about it.
right. And
Really?
It doesn't belong to you.
It doesn't
you
belong
work
to
for
you.
a government agency. That tech belongs to the government
Right.
legally. So now you've just broken the law.
And that's the difference, I think. Like, again, for those aspects that I explained that were just like similar to me, I'll look up like 50 different things first and be like, should I do this? What happened when you don't pay attention to this thing if I go left and have a whole chart? All right, go left, all this happens. Go right, all that happens.
And that's why he's never robbed a bank, because he's going to think about all the reasons why he probably shouldn't do it and what happens if he gets caught, and then we're just going to stay broke because we didn't rob the bank.
That's it. But yeah.
But if he found a way to do it without getting caught,
Right.
I like it. So, as I mentioned, I've only read The Gray. I definitely plan on reading some of the other ones because there's a lot of them that I've seen that I was like, oh, this looks pretty good. Tell us, I guess, one of your other projects that's kind of like your baby, your love child.
Ooh,
It's your turn to do so.
that is true. Like my baby.
Come on, you go ahead and say Unbeloved. You want to say Soul, but it's the Unbeloved.
Yeah. Okay. So the community absolutely loves Soul. The community loves Soul.
And you
So the
enjoy
Soul and the
writing
Gray are the top two stories, but my baby is the Unbeloved. I love that story. So, fun fact: the Unbeloved, Dogma, and Last Day all used to be one story that I was writing in high school. So, obviously, since they're all split up and stuff like that, but the Unbeloved follows two Shinto deities, Izanagi and Izanami. Their mission to maintain order and structure in the shapeless chaos that is the world. At some point, they fail their mission. How? Find out in Chapter 0. They fail their mission, and we fast forward thousands of years later, and the world is in shambles, and it's up to their children to save the world from a second apocalypse. Oh my god, I love that story.
That sounds cool. The covers look even better, so
Thank you.
yeah. That's
And
going
I try to design
be the
all the
next one.
covers
To tell the story.
to tell the story. So after you're done reading it, you look at the cover and go, oh.
And that's not just for Unbeloved either.
And that's not just right, not just for the unbeloved, but I love that story so much. I've written up until chapter 11 or 12 of that story. So
Okay.
that's like it's just waiting on art. It's just waiting on art.
Wow.
That's the case.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Thank you.
So, as I kind of scroll through your website, I noticed that you don't only just do comics, you also have manga. And I noticed, at least from my opinion, it looks like The Unbeloved looks like a manga.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it is for sure.
Tell us about that.
What, like the process of writing that?
Tell us about that story in general. Like, what is that story about? How did that come about? And why manga?
Well, we wanted to tackle both. One of the portions of our origin story, if you would, we had a habit of how we would have did things better, how we would fix certain shows or anime, so on and so forth. The long and short of
More
it,
importantly, oh man, the end of Naruto really was stupid.
that's it. It was. It truly
I wouldn't say
was.
stupid,
It wasn't stupid.
but it was more
frustrating.
like, yeah, you know, Madara could have just won. It's okay.
They could have won. I mean, Madara could have just won, and everybody still gotten exactly what they
okay.
want. The whole
Sometimes
point
the
of the
bad
Infinite
guy
Tsukiyomi,
wins.
right? The whole point of the Infinite Tsukiyomi, like everybody got what they want. Like, come on.
How convenient, right?
How convenient. But that would be so much better story-wise, right? In my opinion, right? How I would have done it was, again, they lost. They're inside the Infinite Tsukiyomi. Madara won, got what he wanted. Hell, Obito won. He gets to see Ren in the dream state. Naruto is a Hokage in there. Perfect, right? And I think how we explained it before, Boruto being essentially a fever dream, the whole thing with the Kara organization, right? It's run by an Otsuki just like Kaguya, right? So the whole point of that organization could have been to disrupt this chakra tree, whatever the case may be, and whatever Jigen was trying to do, whatever the case. But Boruto would have to make the ultimate sacrifice by being the hero that nobody would ever know, right? He would never exist in the first place if he breaks them from this dream. Now, everybody would still remember through that and still try to create this peaceful world because they see what could become, and it would be an honor to those that never existed in the first place, a possible future. Man, that would be great, but that's not the story. That's not the story.
Yeah, it's the story.
So, but yeah. So
That's how we got the manga. Perfect.
that's exactly how we got the manga. That's how
To be
Midnight
fair,
Comics
that's the
started.
Midnight Comics origin. We said we were like, you know, why is everyone afraid of finality, death, stakes, letting
Yeah.
the good guys lose?
Right.
We should
Yeah.
write stories where those kinds of things happen.
Right. But then it's like, obviously we went to see that representation, right? Because for us, a lot of the time, people's stories in. Who's going to carry on those stories, right? Who's going to talk about what was, who's going to, much like the logo and the whole origin story behind the name and logo, who's going to pick up the pieces while after everything is seemingly gone and destroyed, right? Cities wiped off the map, loved ones gone. Somebody is still around to continue that legacy. What happens next? Hence the somewhat obsession in some of those early stories of this post-apocalyptic situation, right? Dogma takes place. 2 demon hunters make it to a city just a little too late, and they got to fight Legion. Another post-apocalyptic situation. They're gone, right? But maybe there's somebody left in the city to save. Just maybe there's a single person that we can help. That person also still has a story to tell. Right, so, yeah.
I love that. I love that a lot. So, I guess final question, or second to final question, really. So I have one more now that I think about it. Are all of your stories in the same universe, or are they connected in some way?
Currently, everybody has their own titles, and then we just follow through and see what happens.
Nice. I like it. I like it. I like it. So what else are y'all working on? What's in the pipeline for Midnight Comics?
Whew. What else?
Story-wise, too much.
So much. So much. The
Wait.
ones closest to dropping that's not already a published story is Dreamweaver. You want to do the log line situation for that?
Dreamweaver is essentially a Afro-futuristic Robin Hood story where the governments have collapsed and all the rich people are hoarding the resources.
Mm-hmm. And it's up to this character to help save the undesirables, if you would, what they consider the undesirables. Yeah, so that's gonna be
That features Maya, a non-binary character with some really cool looking suit and tech.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
I have a picture of the cover. Hold on.
Oh, is this a Divergent Comics exclusive?
Of the cover? No, I think we posted the cover.
Did we post the cover?
Not a lot. I think we posted the cover like once.
Hold up.
I didn't know you put it in there.
Yes, I did.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah,
I
that
love
one's gonna be fire.
I look forward to it.
So that first issue is written. It needs to go off to
Editor.
the editor,
Mm-hmm.
which has been meaning to go off to the editor for a while, but it'll get to her soon.
Mm-hmm.
And then art. And so, of course, Blue Morpho is always coming soon.
Yeah, Blue Morpho. Of course, issue 0 is inside of Tales from Midnight 1, but there is a whole. So Blue Morpho
is probably one of the longest running series that we're gonna have.
Yeah. What chapter or issue are you on that now?
Issue
10?
have I written up to? Yeah, 10.
10? Yeah. Just a matter of getting artwork, but we're trying to find the right
artist.
the artist.
That's always the hard part.
Yeah, for sure.
It's it has to be this good mix of that old school 80s art, but mixed with a little bit more of a modern.
Yeah, it's got to have that
style.
grit, but
also be very gritty. So it's we've seen some that's like, oh, that'd be perfect.
So the fun thing about that story, and then we have one more that's like on the cusp of being ready to rock out, right? No,
that's the only one that I keep updating on. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Blue Morpho. Are you familiar with the Butterfly by chance?
I am not familiar with the Butterfly.
So the Butterfly is a character that came out in the 70s. She got 2 issues in Hellrider magazine and ended up in public domain obscurity. Mm-hmm. She's credited with being the first African American superheroine created, right? So she predates Storm, she predates Vixen, whole nine, right? And so she's public domain, and we was like, there's a lot of history in that, right? So where did she go for all these decades, right? So what we decided to do is give the last mission of the Butterfly. And
that's what issue 0 is.
That's what issue 0 is. And then we fast forward and showcase her daughter, the character that we made. If she didn't have a daughter in her comics, we create Yara Michaels, who will eventually become the Blue Morpho. So we kind of get to see her on her journey on that decision, right? Because vigilantes, right? We see Batman. He's got the money. He's got the status to pull this off. Yara is a black girl in the early 90s in Cali, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like
in LA during the LA riots.
Right.
Oh, wow.
That's not spoilers. That's not spoilers?
It sounds like stuff we've talked about.
Okay. So she's a gymnast. She is You said
the way you said she's a gymnast like that was your big
no, not at
Oh.
all. So she's a gymnast. She had a full ride for college through a scholarship because of that. Potentially going to hit the Olympics, like the whole night. Life is good. Mm-hmm. Rodney King incident takes place. She's an activist. She protests and all this stuff. Gets arrested during the LA riots. Loses it all. Now what?
Wow.
So now that decision, again, obviously she is the titular character, becomes the Blue Morpho. But what are the ramifications from there? How do you have a normal life after doing this?
Yeah.
How do you fund this? How do you live like this? Right? It's cool when Daredevil and Batman's doing it, but what happens when this black girl from Cali? What does that look like? And so that's what that story is.
Now
about.
that sounds like a dope story.
Fun fact. A blue morpho is a type of butterfly that is indigenous to South America.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
A lot of people was like, "Oh, blue morpho."
Venture Brothers.
Venture Bros. I've never watched Venture Bros. I've seen like an episode here or there, but I never saw those episodes. So it was literally just came out of my brain. because she's also Afro-Latina.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, Blue Morpho's indigenous to South America. She's part Brazilian.
And I think specifically Brazil too for
Yes.
the Blue Morpho. Yeah. Okay. So
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So there's that, and then lastly, the book that we actually have some, at the very least, promo art out there for is God Hand. God Hand, or Shin Henshin, if you would, is another manga that is it's a Super Sentai-esque story. It actually follows a character by the name of Masako. She is a half black, half Japanese woman that lives in 60s Japan, and then she ends up trying to find her identity and joins the most dysfunctional Sentai team you've ever seen.
Okay. That sounds awesome.
Thank you.
That's also the one I keep updating on.
There are a lot of stories. Tell me about this one.
He knows about this one. But yeah, the graphic novel that I wrote in a week.
Oh, that's wow.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
going to be released under the Midnight Comics umbrella.
Impressive.
That's actually called Runaway Love, which is an homage to Mary J. Blige
1 second, Mom.
in her song Runaway Love. So,
Yeah, that
making headway.
writing an entire graphic novel in a week was impressive.
Oh, there is more?
So,
So
definitely.
much cool.
Yeah. Awesome. So, final question, and I'll let you all go.
Okay.
Someone new wants to make comics. They come to you for a piece of advice. What is one thing you would tell them?
Just do it. Just do it. Like, one of the things that, kind of like the Kickstarter situation, right? You got to rip the Band-Aid off. You can only prepare for so long. Like, you've got the story, you got the idea, you got the character designs. Hell, in some cases, you got the artwork. Just drop it. Just do it. You have the idea. And people are always worried about, and forgive the potential ramble here, people are always so worried about, oh no, if I say too much about this character, somebody's going to take it. Nobody knows your story. Nobody's going to be able to tell your story. Nobody's going to be able to take your vision. Will there be similarities out there? Of course. There's nothing new under the sun, right? There's probably, what, about 4 characters that we can almost name off the top, 2 for sure that we can name off the top of our head that are young black women with fire powers that have mental health issues.
Yes.
But nobody knows Tasha's story. Admani is
Only
based
one I know of
on
mental health
her.
issues. The other one is just a fire.
Just a black woman with fire powers, right? But it's like, okay, cool, there's a similarity. But Tasha's pulling from, to answer that kind of question that you had earlier, similarities. Admani is loosely based on Tosh, right? And so nobody else can tell Tasha's story the way Tasha's going to tell the story. So
Exactly.
don't
Especially
worry
considering
about
it's
all of
practically
that.
my story.
Just do it. Just do it.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, that's honestly sometimes the best advice you can give someone. If you're stuck in your head all day trying to figure out, okay, how can I make this story perfect, or how can I release this story the right way, you're never going to release it, and it's just going to stay there.
Nope.
Right. That's the case with anything. You're stuck in your head
Yeah.
all day. You're just not going to do whatever it is.
Right.
I've been there a lot.
I was just telling my friend about that. It's just like there's always gonna be, oh man, I wish I would have did this. Oh man, I should have did this better. Like, enjoy the process. I guess if there's another part of it, enjoy the process.
I love that.
So yeah,
That is great. Well, this was great. I enjoyed being able to pick you guys' brain. Also, again, congrats on the Kickstarter.
Thank you.
Look forward to getting issue 3 and exploring more of the Midnight Comics universe. Before I let you guys go, tell the people where they can find more of your work and where they can follow you on social media.
Of course, you can find everything at midnightcomics.org. Sign up for the mailing list so you can get all kinds of updates from us. And on social media, though it is connected to the website, you can find us Midnight X Comics everywhere on social media except for Facebook and YouTube, where it's just Midnight Comics.
Awesome.
And Blue Sky.
All the links will be in the description below. Make sure you go to their website, buy some of their books, buy all of them if you can. They have a whole graphic novel on there, which is epic and crazy. Like I said, go show these guys some support. It's amazing. I love everything that Midnight Comics is doing. Till next time, this has been the Divergent Comics YouTube channel. Again, I'm Gary. Thank you, Lloyd and Natosha, for jumping on here.
Of course.
Thanks for
Everyone,
having
have a good one.